One walked away with $30 million and called it not enough. One found out her entire lifestyle had been paid for with stolen money. One lost a $6.5 million mansion to foreclosure while still on camera. And one couldn't lease a car. These are the Real Housewives divorces that changed everything. Marriage has always been the beating heart of the Real Housewives franchise. Not because these women are defined by their husbands, many of them would rightfully push back against that framing. But because the show is built around a specific image of coupled wealth, of partnerships that create the lifestyle, the properties, the parties, the general abundance that forms the backdrop of every season. When those partnerships end, everything that was built on them can end too. Sometimes violently, sometimes in slow motion, playing out over multiple seasons while the cameras capture things no one intended to broadcast. Sometimes in ways that reveal that the wealth audiences were watching was never as real as it appeared. The Real Housewives divorce curse is one of the most documented phenomena in reality television. But the financial dimension of these divorces, the settlements, the losses, the properties foreclosed, the credit accounts that didn't exist, the fortunes that evaporated, is what most people only half understand. This is the full picture. To understand the scope of what Real Housewives divorces can involve financially, start with Camille Grammer. Because Camille walked away with $30 million and spent years being made to feel like she should apologize for it. Camille joined Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in Season 1 in 2010. Since she arrived as the wife of Kelsey Grammer, the Emmy-winning star of Cheers and Frasier, one of the most commercially successful actors in television history. The Grammers had been married for 13 years. They had 2 children together. There was no prenuptial agreement. What the audience watched during Season 1 was the dissolution of that marriage happening in real time. While Camille was filming RHOBH in Los Angeles, Kelsey was in New York, where he had met Kate Walsh, a flight attendant who would become his 4th wife. The cameras caught the growing distance, the awkward phone calls, the way Camille moved through her enormous Malibu estate alone, surrounded by hired help and beautiful things, while her marriage quietly ended in another city. The divorce was finalized in February 2011. Kelsey married Kate Walsh 2 weeks later. The settlement figures that emerged made headlines. Camille received $30 million, which represented her share of the $60 million in marital assets the couple had accumulated across 13 years of marriage. No prenup meant California's community property rules applied. Half of what they built together was legally hers. Here's the detail that most coverage skips. When Camille married Kelsey in 1997, he was in financial ruin. Drug addiction, bad decisions, years of spending beyond his means during and after his marriages had left him nearly broke despite having earned enormous money from Cheers and Frasier. The TMZ reporting at the time was specific about this. Camille helped right the financial ship. She managed the money, made the decisions that rebuilt their financial position to the point where there was $60 million to split. What $30 she received was not just a passive share of her husband's earnings. In a meaningful sense, it represented wealth she had helped build and protect. Kelsey spent years being unkind about it in public. In a 2012 interview with Oprah Winfrey, he said their marriage was over as soon as it began, and that he had stayed out of stubbornness rather than love. He later called Camille pathetic for talking about him so much. When a wildfire destroyed Camille's Malibu home years later, he did not reach out to her, only to his children through other channels. The daughter they share confirmed it publicly in 2018. My parents still don't talk at all. Ever. $30 million is $30 million, but Camille Grammer's divorce is a story about a woman who built a life, watched it be taken away while cameras were rolling, received her legal share of what she had helped create, and has spent years being required to justify having accepted it. She said it plainly at the RHOBH reunion. I was married for 13 years. That's a long time. I worked hard. I just didn't sit back buying fancy clothes and shoving bonbons in my face. Thank God, she also said that there was no prenup. Taylor Armstrong's divorce is not really a story about money at all. It is a story about what happens when a marriage that was built on the performance of wealth, rather than actual wealth, ends the worst possible way, leaving the surviving spouse with nothing but the bills. Taylor joined Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in Season 1, alongside her husband Russell Armstrong, also a venture capitalist who presented himself as a successful financier, and moved through Beverly Hills social circles with the confidence of a man who had everything figured out. He did not have anything figured out. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in October 2005. 11 days later, he married Taylor. What followed was years of living above their means. The $60,000 birthday party for their 4-year-old daughter, the Beverly Hills address, the dinners and parties, and social calendar that RHOBH required and that Russell could not sustain. His attorney, Ronald Richards, described it precisely after Russell's death. These couples join these shows, and then they keep trying to outdo each other, and they end up spending all their money trying to sustain a lifestyle that's unrealistic and wasn't there prior to the show. By the summer of 2011, Russell was being sued by MyMedicalRecords.com for $1.5 million, accused of misusing investor funds. Taylor filed for divorce in July, citing years of physical and verbal abuse that included a broken jaw. 2 weeks after the divorce filing on August 15, 2011, Russell Armstrong was found dead at a friend's home in Hollywood. He was 47 years old. Taylor was left with nothing: debt, legal battles from creditors who wanted money Russell had not paid, a small daughter, and an ongoing television show that was still using footage of their marriage. The settlement of the My Medical Records lawsuit played out on camera during Season 2. Taylor was required to surrender her engagement ring, a 10-carat yellow diamond valued at $251,000, as part of the payment. She also handed over 2 Hermes Birkin bags, which were supposed to help settle the remaining balance. The Birkin bags turned out to be counterfeit, fake, worthless. Taylor Armstrong had tried to settle a lawsuit with designer bags she may not have even known were fakes. The settlement had to be renegotiated because the assets she surrendered were not what they appeared to be. The ring was listed on eBay by the creditors who received it. The wedding ring that was supposed to one day go to her daughter was sold on the internet to cover a debt run up by a husband who had been performing financial stability since before their wedding day. Taylor has since remarried and rebuilt her life. But the story of her first marriage to Russell Armstrong is a cautionary tale about what the pressure of appearing wealthy on national television can do to a couple who cannot afford the image the show requires of them. Brandi Glanville joined Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in Season 2, which aired in 2011, as a cautionary tale already in progress. She had not been on a reality show before. She was not someone who had chosen celebrity. She was a woman whose marriage had ended because her husband had an affair with a country music star whose personal life had become the subject of tabloid coverage she had no control over, who was rebuilding from financial zero in a city where pretending you have resources is a survival skill. Eddie Cibrian and Brandi had married in 2001. They shared 2 sons, Mason and Jake, and lived in a 10,000-square-foot house in the Los Angeles area. By Brandi's account, the financial arrangement of the marriage was simple. Eddie managed the money, and Brandi's name was not on a single account. For 13 years, she had no independent financial identity whatsoever. When the affair with LeAnn Rimes became public in 2009, and Brandi filed for divorce, she discovered the full cost of that arrangement. "I was a 36-year-old woman who couldn't lease a car and couldn't lease a house," she said in an interview with the New York Post. "For 13 years, my name wasn't on one account. I'm still building my credit." She also confirmed what many viewers had suspected. The enormous house they lived in was not a reflection of actual wealth. "We were living way above our means in a 10,000-square-foot house," she said. There wasn't a lot to get in the divorce settlement, honestly. There was no safety net, no credit history, no assets to negotiate over because the lifestyle was largely a performance maintained on credit that had not been accumulated in her name. Brandi walked away from 13 years of marriage with her children, a modest divorce settlement, and the need to rebuild her financial identity from scratch. 36 years old in one of the most expensive cities in America, RHOBH gave her a platform and a paycheck. It also gave her a new arena for her ongoing public story, the former wife navigating life after the betrayal, while her ex-husband and the woman he left her for continued building their life on the other side of town. By 2025, Brandi was facing a different kind of devastation. The mysterious facial condition she has described as something eating her flesh, contracted during filming in Morocco, that has left her disfigured, in pain, and by her own account broke after spending over $100,000 in out-of-pocket medical expenses. She said in an interview that she barely leaves her Calabasas home anymore, that she no longer feels like herself, that the health crisis has cost her everything she rebuilt. The Eddie Cibrian divorce did not just cost Brandi financially in 2010, its ripple effects are still visible 15 years later. No Real Housewives divorce in the history of the franchise carries the same weight as Erika Jayne's, because Erika's divorce is not just about the end of a marriage. It is about the revelation that the marriage itself, the Pasadena mansion, the private jets, the glam squad, the $40,000 a month spending that RHOBH audiences watched for years, was funded in significant part by money stolen from some of the most vulnerable people imaginable. Erika joined RHOBH in Season 6 in 2015 as the glamorous wife of Tom Girardi, a legendary Los Angeles personal injury attorney who had won billions of dollars in settlements for clients over a 50-year career, including his famous work on the Hinkley water contamination case that inspired the film Erin Brockovich. Tom was 33 years older than Erika. He had built a reputation as one of the great lawyers of his generation. He was powerful, connected, generous, and by RHOBH's telling, completely devoted to his young wife. In November 2020, Erika filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. She said it was snorts, not a step taken lightly or easily. The timing was significant. She filed 6 weeks before creditors forced Tom's law firm Girardi Keys into involuntary bankruptcy. Within days, a lawsuit landed from attorney Jay Edelson, representing the families of victims of the Lion Air Flight 610 crash of 2018 that killed 189 people. The lawsuit alleged that Tom Girardi had embezzled settlement money that should have gone to those families and that the divorce was a sham attempt to fraudulently protect Tom's and Erika's money from collection. What followed was years of courtroom drama that played out simultaneously in real life and on RHOBH, with Erika initially maintaining she knew nothing about Tom's finances and the money that had funded her lifestyle. The bankruptcy trustee, appointed to recover assets for Girardi's creditors, filed a civil lawsuit against Erika for $25,592,261.26. The amount the trustee calculated the law firm had paid for her personal and business expenses over 12 years, using money stolen from clients. Tom Girardi was found guilty in August 2024 on 4 counts of wire fraud for embezzling at least $15 million from clients. He was sentenced in June 2025 to 87 months in federal prison. He surrendered to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles in July 2025 at the age of 85. His expected release date is August 2031, when he will be 92. Erika was never charged with any crime. The civil trial against her began in February 2026. She had said she would never settle, that she would stand trial to clear her name. Settlement talks broke down completely by December 2025. What Erika lost in this divorce is not money in the conventional sense. She lost the protection of a powerful man whose resources had insulated her from everything. She lost the $5 million monthly lifestyle. She admitted on RHOBH that the show was now her main source of income and that losing her financial security was soul-crushing. From the Pasadena mansion that appeared as a backdrop on RHOBH for years, she moved to a smaller rental home. Her net worth, once buoyed by association with Tom's empire, is now estimated between $2 and $5 million, and she is still fighting a $25 million civil lawsuit. She bragged on camera in 2017 that she had no prenup and that it did not matter because Tom was so powerful, he would get what he wanted regardless. She could not have known how right and how catastrophically wrong that statement would turn out to be. Dorit Kemsley's divorce from PK Kemsley, all filed in April 2025 after a separation that had begun the previous year, is still unfolding as of 2026. But even in its early stages, it has already produced one of the most revealing financial confessions in RHOBH history. Dorit did not know what she and PK owned. She said it on camera during season 15. "I have yet to discover everything, and I can tell you I'm in the unknown." The arrangement during their marriage had been simple and total. PK handled the money. Everything. The household accounts, the mortgage, the bills, the financial structure of their life was his domain. Dorit described it in a confessional. "For the last 14 years, PK's been paying the lion's share of our family outgoings. When we separated, he said that the finances would stay the same. That arrangement lasted approximately 1 month. She got an email. PK was no longer going to maintain the financial agreement he had described when they separated. He had agreed to it for 1 month only, he said. That was news to Dorit. She also revealed they had no prenuptial agreement. The reason was significant. When PK and I married, we did not have a prenup. PK came into the relationship broke. He had lost his business and he was really starting from scratch. So, why there was nothing to protect? PK Kemsley came into the marriage having accumulated approximately $50 million in debt at various points in his career as a music industry executive in London. Much of that debt had been resolved, though sources disputed how and when. The house they shared, a $6.475 million Encino mansion purchased in August 2019, was in Dorit's name, but paid for by PK, or, as it turned out, not always paid for. By January 2026, 2 lenders had filed default notices against the property totaling over $840,000 in outstanding mortgage payments, with court documents showing no payment had been made since September 2025. A separate lender filed another default notice in December 2025 for over $5 million, plus $294,000 in missed payments and penalties. Here's the house that was in Dorit's name was heading toward foreclosure because the man who had managed their finances had stopped paying for it. Dorit confirmed on Watch What Happens Live that she learned about the foreclosure proceedings a few weeks before they became public. Not from PK directly, but from other sources. PK was in charge. PK had stopped paying. The house was in her name, and she had no idea any of this was happening until the notices were filed. That is what it looks like when a decade of financial dependence ends without a safety net, and without a prenup, and without the person you depended on choosing to inform you of what is happening to your shared assets. 2 other divorces deserve mention because they set in motion financial collapses that define these women's entire post-marriage stories. Sonia Morgan's divorce from John Adams Morgan. The financier descended from J.P. Morgan and John Adams was finalized before she ever joined RHONY in 2010, but its aftermath was everything. Sonia had been married to one of the wealthiest men in her social world. When the marriage ended, she lost access to the resources that had supported her lifestyle, and the subsequent mismanagement of her own business ventures compounded what was already a significant fall. She filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in November 2010 with $19.8 million in debt. She lost her French chateau, which sold for $5.7 million, and went to creditors. She lost her Colorado property. She spent 5 years working through the bankruptcy proceedings. Famous Upper East Side townhouse, purchased for $9.1 million during the marriage, sold at auction in May 2024 for $4.45 million, nearly half what it was worth. Kim Zolciak's situation was somewhat different. The financial collapse came during the marriage to Croy Bierman rather than after it, but the divorce made everything worse. When Croy filed in 2023, court documents described the couple as financially destitute, and Croy's legal team blamed Kim's reckless spending habits and love for online gambling. The IRS had filed liens for over $1 million in unpaid taxes. The mansion went into foreclosure proceedings multiple times before finally selling for $2.75 million in January 2025. a fraction of what it had been listed for at $6 million. By April 2025, U.S. Marshals arrived to remove Kim from the property she had been renting since the sale closed. The woman who had spent years televising the most elaborate display of domesticity, the glam rooms, the custom everything, the family of 8 in designer clothes, was physically evicted by federal officers from the last home her marriage had produced. The pattern across every one of these stories is not complicated once you see it. These women built lives around partnerships. In some cases, Camille, Sonia, those partnerships ended through the choices of their husbands, leaving them to fight for their legal share of what they had helped create. In others, Taylor, Brandi, Dorit, the financial architecture of the marriage was entirely controlled by the husband, and when the marriage ended, the wife discovered that the architecture was either illusory, hidden, or actively being used against her. Erika Jayne's case is the most extreme because what she discovered was not just that the money was gone, it was that the money had never been hers to spend, that the lifestyle she had broadcasted to millions of viewers for years had been subsidized in part by theft from crash victims and burn survivors, and the grieving families of people who had died waiting for legal settlements they never received. All of these women were married to men who controlled the financial reality of their shared lives. All of them found out at the moment of divorce that controlling something is not the same as managing it well or honestly. And all of them were left to navigate the gap between the life they had been living on camera and the financial reality waiting for them on the other side. The Real Housewives franchise sells a specific dream. These divorces show what happens when the dream ends and the ledger gets opened. $30 million wasn't enough. A fake Birkin sealed the settlement. Marshall showed up to remove her from the property, and one woman found out she couldn't lease a car. Real Housewives divorces don't just break up marriages. They break open the truth about who is actually paying for what. Subscribe for more.